All right, welcome back to the Generational Legacy Podcast. I'm here with Mom and Dad, with Pastor Doug, Pastor Fiona, and today we're going to talk a little bit about creativity and a little bit about missions, and I don't know, whatever else we talk about.
Yes.
It's kind of one of those things. But I kind of wanted to open up today talking a little bit about creativity. That's like one of my things. Like I love creativity and I love seeing everyone in the kingdom express themselves. And there's a thing I've been noticing about churches, like my whole life, how churches often produce some of the worst content.
Oh no.
Some of the worst quality content.
Yeah.
I mean it's not a secret. It's like a known thing. Because oftentimes they are maybe limited by resources or the people aren't coming in, and that's part of the issue. But what I think a lot of it is that people don't understand how creativity and being a Christian is super intertwined.
Right.
God is the most creative thing ever in existence.
Right.
He created the heavens and the earth. He created us. He created all of the flowers, the plants, the fruits, right? So creativity is in every single person. It's literally in our DNA. And while everyone may not be innately a creative, right? A person who's a creative is somebody who lives and breathes creativity. Everything they do, there's some kind of creative thing to do everything.
So what's the definition of creativity for you? Like when you
creativity, creativity, I mean, there's all sorts of things that it can be, and it's kind of situational, but it's doing something new or seeing a way to do something that's never been done before.
So it's not like editing something that already exists.
Well, it can, because you're seeing it in a new way. You're seeing something that has never been done before
to something else,
but you're able to see the end result before it happens.
Right.
So some people may have creativity to see the end result, but may not have the skill to do it.
Right.
But they're able to
say what they want.
Articulate something that has never been done before. They're able to articulate what it is and how it should be done. Right? So like, to bring it all back, I think like if you look all throughout history, right? Art has always reflected the spiritual health of the place it came out of. The trends of art have always reflected the spiritual health of where it came out of. And you can determine a lot about the spiritual health of a place by what art is being produced. If we look at the world today, majority of mainstream art is full of lawlessness and sin.
Like rebellion.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is what you see. The spiritual health of the nation right now is not good because the art that's being produced, right? But if you think in the day of old painters, like if you think of the Sistine Chapel, it was a reflection of the story of creation and God and how he's sovereign and how he's holy. Like the art was a reflection of that. So when we are thinking about, creating things, there are three factors that come into play when we're thinking about creating for the kingdom. Right? You create with power, wisdom, and understanding. Those are the three things. And understanding is also interchangeable with ability.
Okay.
So power is the power of the Holy Spirit, right? You need to create everything that you create needs to be with the power of the Holy Spirit attached to it.
Because that's how God did it the first time.
And well, I've got a verse that will
that's awesome.
We'll show it. Then you need wisdom.
Right.
Wisdom of where to put the thing that you've created or how to use the thing that you have created. And then understanding or ability is the actual skill to create it. So I've got two verses.
Right.
These are like my anchor verses.
Okay.
I went to Ramos, so I have to have verses for everything.
Yes.
This is Exodus 31, and it's talking about the building of the temple.
Okay.
Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "See, I have called by name." This is a guy who I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It starts with a B. The son of Uri, the the son of Hur of the tribe of Judah. I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So God was commissioning somebody to create something that was a holy thing. He was asking a person to create his tabernacle. It came straight from heaven. And if you notice, this is the first time somebody's ever filled with the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God used to come upon people, but people weren't filled with the Spirit of God. But God commissioned an artist and a craftsman who was commissioned to create something for him. He filled him with his Spirit. And he commissioned him to create it with the Spirit of God in wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge. Those are the three things. And so if God had to fill somebody with his Spirit to create something in the Old Testament that was worthy of him coming to rest in. Right. It doesn't change for us today.
Yes.
We still have to create with those same things. And then in Jeremiah 10, verse 12, it says, "It is he who made the earth by his power, who established the world by his wisdom, and by his understanding he has stretched out the heavens."
Yes.
So when God created the earth, he created the earth because of his power. It says, "It is he who made the earth by his," so his earth came to be by his power. He established the world by his wisdom. He knew what systems to put in place for the earth to last.
Right. And it
that
keeps
was his
lasting.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. That was his wisdom. And by his understanding, he stretched out the heavens. He was skilled enough to stretch out the heavens. He knew his skill. So when you look at the example with the tabernacle, right? If you keep reading, it says that the guy who, I'm not even trying to say his name, who he commissioned and filled with the Spirit of God, he was already an expert at craftsmanship. He was already an expert at what he did. So the thing God used him for, he already had reached worldly expertise in. Then after he reached worldly expertise, God filled him with his Spirit.
So he could do his work.
Right. So the reason that content in the church world or anything, right? The reason it isn't up to the quality of the world is because we have people who are not taking the time to become experts in their craft. We have a lot of people who maybe they have the power and they have maybe the wisdom, but they don't have the understanding of how to do it.
Right.
They're not an expertise. They're not an expert at the
and they
creative
get frustrated.
Right. But
So
they never take the time to actually learn it.
Yes.
Because there is absolutely merit in what God calls you to do. He will equip you for.
Right.
But sometimes, and we see it here, this person was already an expert at what God was calling him to do.
Yeah. This is why, like, I'm not a big fan of saying, well, you don't need an education for God to use you because he could use you just like you are. Like, so when God tells somebody to go to school and study something, it's for a purpose coming up. And he expects you to go do the job, go do it. Like, when he told me to go back to school and do what I did, I have no ambition of my own to go do that and wanted to earn that, but I know it was for a specific purpose that he has planned. Yeah. And it's the same with this skillfulness of craftsmanship, that if he called you to go do that study, to go to the best school in it, to go find out the best, learn the best software, right? Intern with the best craftsman or whatever it is, you go do it. You don't have to ask like, well, Lord, I'm not going to get a job with this. I want to work for the kingdom. Right. Well, he might need that. Right. That's what you're saying is he needs that to work for the kingdom.
Right.
When you're talking about this, I think of two people. Caleb had a different spirit, and Daniel had an excellent spirit. Yeah. And you see how God used them in great and mighty ways because of that inner working, that inner makeup that was that they had.
Different and excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
Goes together.
Different. Yeah. But, creation has become something that is like very, what's the word? It's become so mundane.
Right. It's like a side thing.
Well, and it's become something, so creatives get frustrated.
Yeah, because they don't get opportunities.
But, well, here's the thing. The key to not being frustrated as a creative is to not find your worth in what you create.
Yes.
That is the whole reason that creatives are always angry and they're always frustrated.
Because they feel rejected if what they produce isn't accepted.
If what they produce isn't received well, they're not received well.
Right. That's how they feel.
Exactly. That because all of their identity is in what they create, because that's who they are. They were meant to create.
Right.
But
they never learned a skill.
Well, when you understand the reception of what I create is not my job. Like, okay, so let me put it this way. Whatever we create, if we're doing it for the kingdom, the Holy Spirit will get it to the people it needs to get to. And sometimes you can be discouraged. You think more people should see it or whatever. And like, I'm not putting a cap, right? You know, there's no cap. But the Holy Spirit, if he tells you to do something and create something, he'll show it to the people he needs to show it to. And what we have to understand, and what happens is a lot of churches, right? They make content, whatever, and it gets maybe 100 views, 200 views, 50 views, right? And they think, man, like, nobody likes this, right? But it's getting to the people it needs to get to for that season.
And it's also protecting you from being seen at a level that you may not be the best at yet. You.
Yeah.
But you might not be as great yet creatively.
Yeah.
So as you're growing in that feature, it may go to the max of who should see it and still bless you for it. Like, oh, what a great effort. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Versus to really go in front of people who are, they're comparing you to somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that also.
Right. And I mean, I remember in my walk as a creative, my creative journey, when I first started creating versus now, I mean, the quality of content is much different.
I remember when you did video editing at least. I was one of your first.
Oh gosh, Mom would tear me apart.
I would tear this kid apart.
There was one time, oh man, there was one time, I think I had been doing video for, gosh, maybe like a year, maybe not even a year, maybe like 7 months.
Yes.
And my mom, she got the opportunity to have some TV programs, right?
Yes.
So I did them for her, and oh gosh, I spent 8 hours editing this program. I did not leave my seat for 8 hours. I didn't use the bathroom. I didn't eat. I didn't do anything. And I exported it. I showed it to her. Mom's like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Did I say it that way? Yeah.
She was like, this is terrible. She was like, why would you do this? Like, why'd you do this here? Like, she was just like everything. But because my worth was found in what I created, it really affected me.
Yes.
Like it at that time, it really hurt me.
Yeah.
Right?
Did you repair? It looks like you did.
Yeah. I'm prepared now. But it's like, the Lord showed me that when I had put this together, because this was like what I'm talking about now was actually a lesson I taught at Rhema one time. But I told my students, I was like, the trap from the enemy is the minute you receive praise for something that you create, then you expect it for everything. But honestly, the thing is, sometimes God's going to have us create something that won't be received well by the majority, but it's the minority that sees it that God uses to touch somebody. That's just the reality of it. And that's not everything, but there are times, and the reason that it's important to not find your worth in what you create is when those times happen, you have to know it's not on me to have it be received well. It's on the Holy Spirit to put it out and to use it to minister to people.
So you're talking about creativity, and I think of a swordsman. You know, they may not be the greatest at the beginning, but they go through training. They go through discipline. And they develop that skill and become something great. So someone who is creative, you know, it's important to not identify with what you create, because as you're just starting, you know, it may be the best that you can do, but you're undeveloped.
Right.
But once you develop it and you come into your own, then you'll increase in appreciation for that.
And I mean, the other side to it is, and the reason it's important to create with quality, and the reason it's important to enhance your skill, is like God may ask you to create something you are not equipped for. Like he may ask you to create something, but you're not equipped for it because you never took the time that he had set aside for you. You filled that time with something else instead of sharpening your skills. Now God has to go ask another person to go do it. And all those things, it delays his coming, really.
Well, and it makes you offended that
Right.
you've been in this for so many years, and how come he's got these people doing it and not you?
Right.
But it's not the amount of time you put in. It's not the years you've been there and you've not learned anything. You have to keep growing.
Right.
And so in creative, you have to grow as much as you would grow as a Christian, like studying the word and you have to study your art. You have to study your field.
And the other thing about it too, when we create for the kingdom, right, we're literally depositing heaven onto earth through what
Something
we create.
new. Yeah.
Because the thing is, right, a lot of people, when they hear the phrase on earth as it is in heaven, right, they associate that with a church service or they associate that with a sermon, right? But it's not subject to just that.
Right.
It could be a painting.
Yeah.
It could be a video. It could be a song. It could be a poem. Whatever God's calling you to create, all of that takes creativity. But all of it, there's a well in heaven that is waiting to be deposited onto the earth through the things that we create. But the media right now, all the things that is being created right now, and the pinnacle of creativity right now is still in the world. It's taking it from the opposite place. There are ideas that are literally straight from hell, and they're bringing hell onto the earth through the things that they create.
That's true.
It's the same thing. We need to bring heaven onto the earth from the things that we create.
Yeah, we have to answer
And
back.
you know, God, the enemy can't create anything new. He has no creativity.
Recycling. He's good at recycling.
He just is taking things that maybe hasn't been seen for a really long time, and it seems like it's new, but it's not new. God literally has new. I really believe that God has new chords. God has new colors. God has new things that we've never seen on the earth before. New technology, like all this stuff that we've never seen on the earth before. And to kind of segue, all of these things can be used to complete the Great Commission. You know, missions is like a huge thing in my life. It's like what I do.
Yes.
And so I think about the great opportunity that creatives have to spread the gospel. It's creative evangelism.
Right.
There are ways to reach the lost that we've never had before through the internet or you know, anything. If the disciples and the early church, you know, in the book of Acts could turn the world upside down by walking and riding donkeys to places. Imagine what we could do
Well, you know,
with the internet. You know?
right. Well, you know, there are places on the earth, there are villages and countries and things like that where they have no written language.
Yes.
And they pass down, they tell information by stories and drawings.
Yeah.
And
So
song.
it still happens that way.
Yeah.
And songs.
Yeah.
So this is something that has to be leveled up, so to speak,
Right.
and improved and increased so that people could have access to the information that is in the Gospels, but there's no language to describe it. This is where creativity really would come into play, even on how to get the message to them.
So the Holy Spirit will help you reach people in creative ways.
Right. and you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about the vast need to reach the people. Still today, 42% of the world is in the unreached zone.
Wow.
42%. That's 3.4 billion individuals who need to hear the gospel. And if you actually, this is all from the Joshua Project. That's
right.
the source for this. So there are unreached groups, and then there are frontier groups.
Okay.
So unreached groups means the people who follow Christ or who profess to be a Christian are a fifth of the population or less.
Okay.
And then frontier is 0.1%.
Oh boy, so that's
of the
even
population.
worse than
So a frontier is worse than unreached.
unreached.
Frontier, there is literally almost no movement of the gospel whatsoever.
Wow.
Or there's no one in the entire country or the entire area of the people who is a Christian. So
Right.
there's no way for the gospel to be brought in unless it goes to them.
Right.
But in the unreached, there's often at least a little presence
Right.
of the gospel that
Right.
could spread. But in
Right.
Frontier, there's only 0.1%.
Is there a specific part of the earth that's more
The
prevalent that way?
1040 window has
Mhm.
6,000 of the 7,250 unreached
What's
groups.
the 1040 window for the people who?
It is the longitude and the latitude of the world where it has the most unreached groups. So if you go through like on the map, it's mostly Africa, Asia, and the Middle East is encompassing in that 1040 window.
Right.
And actually right now the country with the highest level of unreached and frontier is India.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
India has got it's 90% unreached groups and 75% frontier groups. So India itself has 2,279 total groups of people that are either unreached or frontier in the whole country.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And is it that they have not heard the gospel or that they don't believe the gospel?
It's
They've
both.
not heard.
Most of it is have not heard though.
Okay.
Majority of it is have not heard. Like
Right.
the gospel is not present as a movement
Right.
in the places that they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So then the creativity could be the place to go. 'Cause think about this. When God created, there was nothing when he started as far as the earth. And he spoke words.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his way of going into the place where there was no person to go yet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Light be light.
Yeah.
He couldn't like send Peter, here, take light over here,
Yeah.
take light. But so it may be in some of these places the spoken word has to become a thing, but it has to be in a creative way that they can accept and receive it.
I remember a lot of the details of this story really are escaping me at this moment. But there was a man, he was a Rhema grad, and he got called from the Lord to this tribe, this unreached tribe. They had never been like interacted with anyone from outside their tribe. So they had their own language, everything. So I think it was in South America, but I'm not 100% sure. So he was called to this tribe. So he went there, and it took him, I think it was like close to a year to even understand like one phrase in what they said.
Yeah.
And like, so he just stayed and stayed and stayed. And when he eventually learned the language, he realized they have no concept of any word that could translate faith.
Wow.
Like it didn't exist in their language. So he had to find ways to explain what
faith
salvation
is,
and faith was in a language where there was no word that even came close to encapsulating it.
Right.
But I tell that story to say he had to rely on the creativity of the Holy Spirit.
Right. To show him how to do it.
One, understand what the language was, but then two, figure out how to preach the gospel in a language that didn't even have a word for faith. But it turned out he stayed there and he lived there, and I think he might still be there today, or he died there. Like he stayed until he had died, and like the whole village got saved, and it used to be known as a warrior village. So then when they would be attacked, they would get the other villagers saved that tried to
that's great.
attack them.
You know, that reminds me, in our family line, we have a person
Yes.
that God has used
Yes.
to reach unreached people groups
Yeah.
Yes.
on many different in many different places.
We have lots of stories we've heard about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is part of, of reaching. I mean, this is the whole point. Like becoming a Christian is also to get other people to become Christians.
I mean, we are commissioned by the Lord himself to go and to make the disciples of all nations.
And this is why Christianity is never boring, because we serve a creator.
Right.
There's
We
so
serve
many
the
ways.
most creative being ever.
He created creativity.
And he comes up with ways, new ways. He's not bound by limits or this or that. And he can use many things to win people.
Right. Yeah, I just think we are entering a new age and a new time where evangelism is not only how it's always been, but there's opportunities to evangelize the world that we have seen used for evil and ways that we haven't even ever seen yet.
Right.
And, I think about with how quick the technology is advancing.
Right.
Think about in 5 years from now and 10 years from now, what opportunities we have to share the gospel.
I mean, if we were to get ahead of the curve here and go and realize what's available and what's happening, become skillful, we could start, training missionaries to do virtual presence in places that people can't get to.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like launch a image of a person talking to the villagers.
And they even make the technology now where you can say something and throw headphones on and it translates it to your language.
Right.
The person who's talking.
Yes.
So like there's all
ways
sorts
to
of
reach, but we have to open our mind capacity to look and see those things happening and not think, oh, this is evil. What is the world coming to? And think, wait a minute, here's a tool. How can we get that to the top of the mountain in some country we heard about that never ever heard the gospel? How can we equip this piece of a technology with the words of God to speak?
I heard a statistic this morning. I was listening to a CD, might have been from a year old, and this person said that with all the satellite technology, if we were to utilize every satellite available, we could preach the gospel to the world in 7 minutes.
Wow. That's incredible.
I feel like the missionaries now that should be up and ready and armed are the creatives. They should be ready to go
because it's not only the people who are called to missions who are called to preach the gospel to everyone. It's everybody.
Yes.
Some people are just called to a different group of people, but everyone is commissioned. And you'd be shocked at how many Christians have never led anyone to the Lord.
To Christ.
Anyone. They could have been a Christian for 20 years.
Yes.
And they've never led anyone to Christ. And so, a lot of people are trying to carry the weight of others and push this thing, try to push this thing so that the Lord can come back, because he can't come back until the whole world is heard. And so we know he's not coming back until there's still 42% of the world that needs to hear the gospel.
Half of the world hasn't heard
3.4 billion people. So
and so this is a good eye-opening experience but the thing is, as leaders of the church, we have to allow those who are trained in that field to create.
Allow the creatives to create and allocate resources to enable them to create. That's the other thing. We don't have time to talk about it now, but there's a big gap in where a lot of resources go. And so it's important for leaders in the church to realize it's something worth investing in.
Yes.
But awesome.
All right. Well,
this was a good talk.
Yes, it was.
Awesome. We'll see you in the next one.
God bless.